Good morning, students. It's so wonderful that we are able to continue studying online. Today, for our English class, we're going to try and have some fun together. To begin the class, we're going to be watching this short clip. I'm sure many of you may already know him, but let's see if you recognize who he is.
Charge the paddle to 200 watts. Charge. Clear!
What's that? What? Very good. Cleared it up.
Sorry to keep you waiting, sir. Nice work in there, people. Now back to the bleeding. Where's this blood coming from? We gotta clamp it off. Where the hell's that J17?
We need that J17 and OR4 right now. Got a major trouble.
Too much blood. I can't see a thing.
EMS is 14 over
More
20.
suction.
Crazy bleeding. Somebody check that line.
Pressure's bottoming out.
Okay, hook me up at 12,
Give me
please,
a
now.
His heart rate is dropping. We're gonna lose him.
Yeah, there.
14 gauge.
How's the TMS?
Come on, people. He's crashing on us.
I'm not getting a reading.
Where is this bullet? Hang in there, fella. Come on, hold on to him. If we don't find it, he's a dead man. I am not gonna lose this guy.
He's slipping.
Sir, we're losing him. I've got to get in there now. Well, doctor, you can't just... This is too dangerous. God. Incredible.
Heart rate is stabilizing. Blood pressure's climbing back.
So, students, can you tell me who that was? That was Mr. Bean. He was very famous when I was in school like you. But you saw that he was pretending to be a doctor. The real doctors were trying to conduct surgery on the patient, but Mr. Bean just sticks his hand into the patient's body and pulls out the bullet. Some of you may say, "Whoa!" and some may say, "Ew!" But we all know that this is a movie and he is just trying to make us laugh. But students, imagine if this was a real situation in a hospital. The whole scene would be so different. Everyone would be so tensed while the doctor performed surgery on the patient. But do you all know when surgery actually began? When did the first doctor perform surgery? Did we always have those beeping monitors to tell us about the heartbeat? Or did surgeons just stick their hands into a body and stitch things up? Today, we are going to study a little more about surgery, learn new vocabulary, and understand the highlights of the lesson, Revolutionary Steps in Surgery. So, let us begin by first reading an excerpt from the chapter. You can follow along with the words on the screen. Surgery dates back to as early as 600 BC. Sushruta Samhita is one of the oldest works in the world dealing with surgery. It indicates that Sushruta was probably the first surgeon to perform surgical operations, plastic surgery. Later, some ancient surgeons performed tooth extraction and bloodletting. Major surgery could not develop for centuries because of lack of knowledge and technology. The doctors had to cut open the part of the body that was not healthy, remove it or set that part right. This would involve a lot of pain to the patient. General anesthetics like ether or chloroform developed only from mid-19th century, making painless surgical operations possible and successful. Modern techniques are used nowadays for anesthesia. General anesthesia benumbs the whole body, and it is used for surgery of any region of the body. For local anesthesia, local anesthetics are injected into the surgical spot or an area near nerves. Over the years now, revolutionary steps have been taken in different types of complicated surgery, and these have made such operations successful. Let us start with cardiac surgery. Today, if you need to have a heart surgery, you can choose from many fine doctors. However, before 1893, this type of surgery was unknown. Doctors did not have modern medical tools and procedures essential for heart surgery. In those days, patients were treated with sedatives and they usually did not survive. Then, in 1893, Daniel Hale Williams, a young African American surgeon, attempted a new medical technique in order to save a patient's life. A patient, James Cornish, was suffering from a very serious knife wound. The knife had cut an artery less than an inch from his heart and punctured the pericardium, which is the sac around the heart. Dr. Williams, with 6 staff doctors, performed a complicated and daring operation. Dr. Williams became the first surgeon to save his patient by successfully repairing the human heart. I don't know about you students, but I am a visual learner. So while I was reading the chapter, I was picturing all that was being said. Some parts made me cringe a little, like the tooth extraction. But other parts made me say, oh wow! So let's now understand the lesson in detail. Together, let's read this first part. Surgery dates back to as early as 600 BC. Sushruta Samhita is one of the oldest works in the world dealing with surgery. It indicates that Sushruta was probably the first surgeon to perform surgical operations, plastic surgery. Later, some ancient surgeons performed tooth extraction and bloodletting. So, I want you to look at this passage carefully and try and guess which word means draining out of blood. The answer is in the meaning itself. Look at the paragraph. Can you guess? If you guessed bloodletting, then you're absolutely right. Bloodletting is a technique where a doctor makes small cuts on a patient's body to drain blood out. They believe that the bad blood gets drained out and is replaced by healthy blood. Doesn't it sound so painful? Moving on to the second word. The meaning is to pull something out. Can you find the word that means to pull something out? The word is extraction. Have you ever had a tooth extraction? It is one of the most painful surgeries. Ensure that you brush your teeth in the morning and evening so that you don't have to go through this surgery. As I was reading the text for you, did you wonder what exactly the Sushruta Samhita was? Let's understand a little more about him through this video from the History channel.
Vedic scholars suggest that not only were the ancient Hindus able to perform brain surgery, but other advanced procedures as well. And much of this medical knowledge was set to record in a Sanskrit text dating back to 800 BC, known as the Sushruta Samhita. In 2017, at a local library in Mahabalipuram, India, Georgios Tsoukalos meets with fellow ancient astronaut theorist Praveen Mohan to take a closer look at the text.
Now, this is a vast medical text that contains information about more than 11,000 illnesses. It talks about 700 medicinal plants, 64 preparations from mineral resources, 57 preparations from animal resources, and it's considered the foundation of Ayurveda, the traditional Indian medicine.
Oh, so this is the basis for Ayurvedic medicine,
Yes.
right here?
Yes. I was able to find a passage. I thought you might find it, interesting. Right here, you can see what it says that surgical operations are of 8 types. They are incising, excising, scraping, puncturing, probing, extracting, secreting fluids, and even suturing. So imagine we had suturing 2,600 years ago. And this book was written more than 100 years before Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine.
That is amazing. And how was this information obtained? Like, what's the story behind this?
Well, the title Sushruta Samhita means that the author, Sushruta, is not really the author. He did not write this book. He got this information from a character called Dhanvantri, who was an otherworldly being.
Dhanvantari is believed to be the physician to the gods and the father of Ayurvedic medicine.
Dhanvantari itself has a divine origin associated with the churning of the Milky Ocean. The churning of the milk of sea refers to perhaps the Milky Way. Dhanvantari came out of that, and then he was the god of medicine, and he then gave this knowledge of medicine to human beings.
Dhanvantari was said to have originated from the Milky Way. And so all of a sudden, you have a connection with this deity arriving from the Milky Way. Well, what more do you want? The knowledge contained in this document, known as the Sushruta Samhita, was brought here by an extraterrestrial visitor.
Ayurvedic medicine is considered one of the world's oldest and most detailed healing sciences. Is it possible that it was really handed down to mankind by alien sources? Ancient astronaut theorists say yes, and suggest that other texts clearly reveal this extraterrestrial connection.
Isn't that so interesting? So Sushruta Samhita is one of the oldest books in the world that deals with surgery. So in this paragraph, we learned who Sushruta Samhita was and the first performance of surgery. Let's move on to the next paragraph. Major surgery could not develop for centuries because of lack of knowledge and technology. The doctors had to cut open the part of the body that was not healthy, remove it, or set right that part. This would involve a lot of pain to the patient. General anesthetics like ether or chloroform developed only from mid-19th century, making painless surgical operations possible and successful. Students, can you imagine living in a world without Google or the internet? If we want to find answers to anything, we immediately Google it. But hundreds of years ago, they didn't have that, did they? And so, when someone was sick, like the passage says, they had to cut open the body and figure out what was the problem. Imagine the amount of pain the patient went through because there was no technology to help subside that pain. Thankfully, technology has developed, and we learn more about it in the next paragraph. Modern techniques are used nowadays for anesthesia. General anesthesia benumbs the whole body and it is used for surgery of any region of the body. For local anesthesia, local anesthetics are injected into the surgical spot or an area near the nerves. Over the years, revolutionary steps have been taken in different types of complicated surgeries, and these have made an operation successful. So now, do you know what anesthesia means? Anesthesia is a substance or gases that makes one feel no pain. Benumbs means to make numb so that one does not feel any pain. Just think, have any of you been to the dentist? Oftentimes, if the doctor has to do work on our teeth, he will first give us a slight poke with an injection in our gums. This injection will then have a numbing effect on that area, so you will not be able to feel the pain while he works on your tooth. This injection is nothing but local anesthesia. So anesthesia benumbs the area where the doctor has to perform surgery. General anesthesia is for when you have to undergo bigger surgeries where you have to be completely unconscious, and that is where general anesthesia comes in. So, if you look at the last line of this paragraph, there is a word that is also in the title of the chapter. The word is revolutionary. This means causing a total dramatic change. So what the author is trying to tell us is that there has been a dramatic change in surgery from ancient times till now. Don't you agree with it? So here we learnt about the use of general anesthesia and local anesthesia in surgery. Moving on, let's read the next paragraph. This paragraph is like watching a movie. So as I'm reading it, I want you to visualize what I'm saying. Alright? Let's go. Let us start with cardiac surgery. Today, if you need to have a heart surgery, you can choose from many fine doctors. However, before 1893, this type of surgery was unknown. Doctors did not have modern medical tools and procedures essential for heart surgery. In those days, heart patients were treated with sedatives and they usually did not survive. Then, in 1893, Daniel Hale Williams, a young African American surgeon, attempted a new medical technique in order to save a patient's life. A patient, James Cornish, was suffering from a very serious knife wound. The knife had cut an artery less than an inch from his heart and punctured the pericardium, which is the sac around the heart. Dr. Williams, with 6 staff doctors, performed a complicated and daring operation. Dr. Williams became the first surgeon to save his patient by successfully repairing the human heart. What an amazing story that was, wasn't it? About Dr. Williams and how he saved the patient. But I want you to have a closer look at the paragraph. Can you point out the word that means related to the heart in the above paragraph? The word is cardiac. You must have heard your parents talking about older people who have had a cardiac arrest. That is nothing but a heart attack. Today, there are multiple machines that help us look at our internal organs without having to cut open the body. But 1,000 years ago, they did not have this type of technology. And so, as the text says, many people died. They were treated with sedatives. Sedatives mean substances that make someone sleepy. In ancient times, there were many plants that could numb the pain. Remember, we studied the meaning of numb already. But numbing the pain didn't mean that the patient was healed, and so they would sadly die. But then, in 1893, came a superhero of sorts, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. He was a young African American surgeon who tried a new medical technique to save a patient's life. The patient was James Cornish. He had a very serious knife wound. You can see that there is a big word, pericardium. That means the sac around the heart. But where exactly is that? And what exactly happened that day? Let's watch this video to find out some more.
Of medical history. At Provident, patients were offered various services, and one was treatment for medical emergencies. 2 years after opening, a young man was admitted after suffering severe injuries.
At the time, a young man had been stabbed with a knife and presented to Dr. Williams' hospital, and since his clinical condition had continued to deteriorate, Dr. Williams had to decide to operate on this patient contrary to the teaching and to the norm in the medical community at that time that cardiac wounds were not to be tampered with. He proceeded in opening the patient's chest, opening the pericardial sac lining of the heart, and discovered that the patient had a stab wound. This is a model of the head, and I will point to the region of the stab wound according to the description in his operative records. It showed about a half a centimeter or half an inch stab wound, about 2 centimeters from the right coronary artery, right around this region, which he repaired and closed the pericardium successfully, with the patient subsequently surviving and outliving Dr. Williams. So this was a major breakthrough, pioneering effort in the field of cardiac surgery, and for the first time confirmed that the human heart can indeed be operated on without any adverse consequences.
At stake was not only the patient's life, but the hospital's future. Dr. Williams was aware that if his patient died as a direct result of his surgical procedure, the public would probably turn against him and his hospital and force him to close.
When you go into an unknown area, you have unforeseen difficulties. To approach the heart in those days, if you go through the pleural space, the space that has the lungs would collapse as soon as they're exposed to atmospheric pressure. And in those days, the endotracheal tube that we use nowadays to keep the lungs inflated when the chest is open wasn't invented until 1914 by a Canadian surgeon. And the information on that wasn't widely disseminated really until the 1940s and 50s in even parts of Europe.
For us today, it may not seem like a big deal. People get heart surgeries all the time and come out completely fine. But Dr. Daniel Hale Williams took the risk and made history. You may have a dream in your heart. Maybe you want to become the best female pilot in history. Or maybe you want to become an astronaut. Whatever it is, choose to do something that will help others. Dr. Williams did become the first surgeon to perform heart surgery, but he also saved James Cornish's life. Decide to make a difference in whatever career path you choose. Alright students, so today we learnt about Sushruta Samhita, we learnt about the use of general anesthesia and its use in surgery, and we also learnt about the first ever heart surgery performed. We're going to stop here. Let's have a little game now for you to check if you understood the chapter thus far. Take a screenshot of the following crossword and see if you can fill up the blanks. The first question is the substance that makes us feel no pain. The second question is another word for things related to the heart. Third one, causing a total dramatic change. And number 4, the last name of the doctor who performed the first surgery on the heart that saved a person's life. I hope you all get the answers immediately, and I hope you enjoyed studying this lesson. For your homework, imagine you get to interview Dr. Williams. What questions would you ask him? Write a one-page conversation in your notebooks, and I'll see you in your next class. That's all the time we have for today. Stay safe. Bye.